Rachel, how are you?
Hello. Bianca, why don't you give us a nice introduction and
Hi,
a little bit about what you
everyone.
do?
I'm Bianca Scaglione. I'm a dancer, singer, and actress from Los Angeles, California. I started dancing when I was 2.5. So I was really young, and I would just kind of spend my days twirling around the house. My parents put me in, and then I never left dance from there. And I feel like it's just who I am. Like, I love dance and I can't really see myself without it. I also teach dance, and I've been teaching dance since I was like 13 or 14. I used to teach at my studio, and then as I got older, that just kind of became like my like go-to. You know what I mean? And yeah, I've just been training in all styles my whole life: ballet, contemporary, tap, lyrical, modern, all of the above. And that's me.
Well, I think I speak for everyone when I say that you offer a major comic relief to so much of what us dancers experience on a day to day. And, that's what from day one
Aw.
drew me to your account as a type A kind of person, which I know most dancers are. So I know I'm not alone in there. It can be so easy for us to get really hung up. Now, for me, it's not necessarily with dance anymore, but it's more even just with my work and having a source of comic relief to kind of remind us that at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's just dance. You know what I mean? Like it's such a big part of our lives, but at the end of the day, we need to be able to see this light and to understand that as dancers, wearing multiple hats, having more to our lives than just the time we spend in the studio is so incredibly important. And you do such a
Thank
beautiful
you.
job with that. So I'd like to hear a little bit from you about how your relationship with dance has shifted over your years. I mean, have you always been able to build this comic relief?
Honestly, I have always been a very like comedic person. I don't take myself too seriously. And I'm kind of grateful for that because it's allowed me to take that personality trait into dance, which, like you said, is very serious a lot of the time. When I was younger, I went to a lot of different studios, and everyone was very serious, which is fine. But at a certain point, I think there's something nice about bringing a little humor, you know? And so that's what I like to do. Like, even when I'm in class, I try not to take it too seriously because at the end of the day, we're all dancing, but we're all human at the same time. And we have to kind of remind ourselves of that. So when I was younger, I was a little bit more serious in the sense of I'm in ballet class. I have to be really serious right now. And then as I got older, like through college and now in my adult life, I find more joy in just experiencing the class like as it is. Whatever happens, happens. If you mess up, laugh, like, because you already messed up. You can't take it back. Might as well make the most of it. So, yeah, I really just appreciate being comedic, I guess you could say, and just like having that human approach to the dance work.
I think that raises a really good point because for so many of us, when we are so hyper focused with dance, we can easily forget about the fact that we're all just human, right? Sometimes it can feel like the demands of dance in general are so above and beyond that it can almost make us not feel too grounded. And I think having that reminder, even if it just means coming on social media, taking a look at one of your posts, and having that reminder that this is supposed to be
Yeah.
fun is so incredibly important, especially for younger dancers, especially for dancers who might be, experiencing challenges in their training, right? Whether it's food challenges, whether it's just challenges with auditions, being able to see and remind ourselves that this can be fun is so incredibly important. When we first connected, you had mentioned that, you enjoy the role that food plays in your life. So I'm curious to hear from you about when you made a connection or started to make a connection between what food could be.
Oh, wow. Loaded question. Um, I am Italian and my family's Italian, obviously. So I grew up with food a lot of the time, which is just like my favorite thing ever. So when I was younger, I ate a lot of pasta, all of that kind of stuff. I still do. But food is my everything, like really genuinely as a dancer, even more so. I find every single day, like how important it is to make sure that you're fueling your body. For example, like when I was in high school, I would go to dance basically every day after school. And I had like, food, but then I loved to snack a lot just because it's quick and on the go. And when you're
Mhm.
bouncing from school to dance, it can be like a spur of the moment thing. But as I got older, I started realizing like I need to actually make sure that I'm having
Mm.
fruit and, granola bars before I dance, as well as like a meal. So for me, like I prefer to have something like a bagel with cream cheese and a banana, maybe some nuts or, whatever it is, but something with balance. I think balance is my biggest thing, is what works for me personally. And even more so as a dancer, I think it's just really important to make sure that you're having like all of the food groups and just completing the circle.
I think an important point here to note, because so much of the work that I do is, of course, helping to dismantle a lot of food fears for dancers. And what's incredibly important is coming to light this idea of fueling our bodies so that we feel energized and supported for the amount that we're dancing. I think that a lot of dancers can fall into behaviors like I'll use the word noshing. That's a hard word to define because dancers can define it in all different ways. So let's think about grazing or snacking throughout the day. And it's not that any of these behaviors are inherently bad. I'm always encouraging that dancers snack. It's just that when it comes to having enough fuel to support the physical demands of our dancing, we need to
Right.
make sure that we're eating enough of these snacks. You know what I mean? Like we're eating enough substance. And you bring up such an important word with balance, making sure that we have those multiple components, that we have food sources of protein, food sources of carbohydrates, of fat. I too am a huge fan of
Same.
bagels with cream cheese. It's actually one of my favorite foods. A lot of dancers have, a lot of dancers have food fears to bagels, right? And it's really incredibly important to dismantle food fears, understand that calories are a dancer's best friend. Calories are energy, and we need that fuel. So incredibly helpful to just hear you, you know, talk about the importance of where you connected food being supportive for you as a dancer, but then also that celebratory aspect of food. I come from a large Jewish family, and like similar to Italians, food is just a huge
Right.
center of everything we do. You know what I mean? Every celebration, everything is centered around food. Having a struggle with food can make it very challenging to really just partake in experiences. So it's incredibly important as well in
Absolutely.
thinking about our relationships with food. Bianca, another question I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is that so many dancers
Yeah.
can hyper focus on their training. You know, that's just kind of like built into our training just from a young age. I'd love to hear from you more about how you build balance into your life. I know that, as you mentioned, comedy and comic relief is a big part of that for you. Can you just chat a little bit more on how you are able to navigate that or maybe just avoid becoming too hyper
Absolutely.
focused?
While I do love dance, I love a lot of other things that I would consider like my hobbies. And for me, that's something that
Mm.
I can just go to when I feel like I'm getting too heavy in the studio, like with my training and everything. So I love to cook. I love making food. I love to draw and I love to paint and color. That's like a really big hobby of mine. I love cleaning. I love shopping. So when I need days that I can just take to myself, I find the things that I find joy in, and then I try to push it over there. little bit, because as a dancer, I think it's really easy to just 100%, like, you're only seeing one thing, you're just going for dance every day, but it's very healthy to have those other hobbies and to take breaks. Like whenever I used to get injured as a younger dancer, when I would come back from my injury, I always felt like I was better because I had time to rest my body. And then in a way, I became stronger, and I think that just kind of speaks to like time away, even for a day or two, really does help a lot. And for your mind as well. It's a mind body connection and they need to work together. So for me, I always go to the things that I love and that make me happy besides dance. But if you don't have those hobbies right now, any dancers that are listening or watching, I encourage you to find some so that you have those avenues as well that aren't just dance, dance, dance.
Absolutely. Yeah, just like I said earlier, dancers can wear multiple hats, and it really does help so much in regards to broadening experiences and then ultimately being able to bring that back to the studio. Exactly what you said. Taking time away from the studio
Yeah.
only strengthened your work in the studio eventually. It's so difficult for dancers to see that in the moment. But I know pretty much from all the dancers I've spoken to on the show, and it's already been 3 years that I've been speaking to dancers, the common theme is that getting over that fear of being out of the studio, taking time away, whether it could be something like a vacation, it could be a weekend, or it could be recovering from an injury. Taking that time is so incredibly important to just bring us back to, again, just from the beginning of our chat,
Yeah.
like our joy and our passion with dance.
To me, being a healthy dancer kind of falls back on the balance and the moderation that I was talking about. For me, that's what's really rung true in my experience. For the moments that I was really fixated on just dance, those were the moments that were maybe more of a struggle for me. But the more that I can just remember, like, I'm a human first, I'm a dancer second, that's where the magic starts to happen. When I can have the moments to rest, when I can have the moments where I'm eating a delicious meal, when I have the moments of coloring or shopping and all of my human traits like coming together with dance, that's when I'm the strongest and that's when I feel the healthiest. Also, boundaries. Like, know when you're pushing yourself a little too much and when to pull back or when to step back and say, okay, like, I think that's enough. Maybe I need to chill for a second. That's fine. You have to kind of talk to yourself as a dancer and intuitively think about those things, because if you're not careful, it can catch up to you. And then before you know it, it's like a mountain crumbling and everything just falls on top of each other. So those are some things to consider. But I definitely would say that for me, being a healthy dancer is all about the moderation and the balance.
Absolutely. I love your discussion about boundaries, though. That's not necessarily something that I often hear on the show, but it is a topic that I talk about with so many of the dancers I work with. And the thing about boundaries is that so often it takes experience and it takes time
Yeah.
to develop that ability to both identify and make space to honor your own personal boundaries. So whether that is something like diet talk, you know what I mean? One of the most common conversations that I'll have with dancers is building boundaries around keeping yourself safe in
Yeah.
spaces that are so entrenched with diet culture. So that could be food and body comments that are just triggering to you, unsupportive to you, and so forth. So it's incredibly important. I love that you mentioned that. Part of becoming or being the healthy dancer is learning how to identify and honor your personal boundaries, because that really is incredibly important to your safety, right? Our personal safety,
Yeah.
and even the safety of our mental health. So, Bianca, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's such a pleasure to connect with you, and I truly do appreciate the fun work that you do for all of
Yeah.
us.
This was great chatting with you. And yes, we will stay in touch.